A little rain was never going to take down a tough guy like Ray Caldwell. The barely functioning alcoholic stood on the mound for Cleveland, a 34-year-old war vet who was given his last chance to play Major League Baseball. He had an agreement with his Hall of Fame manager Tris Speaker, a deal that would manage Ray's alcohol problem rather than punish him for his drinking. Everyone else in baseball had given up, but here stood Ray Caldwell, his very first game in Cleveland, and things for once seemed to be in control. He was up 2-1 after pitching 8 complete innings. He had just retired his second batter of the ninth. Thousands of Cleveland baseball fans braved the storm just to cheer and see if Ray could redeem himself. But as Jumpin' Joe Dugan stepped to the plate, the craziest thing happened. Ray was struck by lightning.
Deep to left center, back for Jean Frito, back.
Raymond Benjamin Caldwell was born in a small mining town just outside of New York. His family crossed over into the state when his stepfather took a railroad job in Salamanca when Ray was young. He worked as a telegrapher for the railroad, a trade that Ray would pick up and use for income before, during, and after his athletic career. Ray didn't play organized baseball in high school. The coach wouldn't let him pitch because Ray's arm was just like Ray, strong, wild, and uncontrollable. They feared he would harm a batter with a wild pitch. He played some local ball, but wasn't considered a prospect by any means. By the age of 23, Caldwell became relentless in his pursuit to play baseball. He bounced from team to team between New York and Pennsylvania, trying to stick to any roster that would have him. Fans and scouts were starting to notice his throwing velocity, but also his lack of control. After a year of bumping around, he'd sign a contract with the McKeesport Tubers, a team in the Ohio-Pennsylvania Industrial League. Players would pull double duty, working and playing for the same company. As a tuber, Ray gained control without losing his power and won 18 games in his first season. His strikeout totals were among the highest in the league. Crowds and scouts traveled specifically just to watch Ray pitch. One scout who took notice was Smoke Wood from the New York Highlanders. Wood sent a glowing report back to the franchise. He had found a tough kid with a hard fastball and an impressive curveball. The team purchased his contract almost immediately. 2 years after his first organized game, Ray Caldwell would become a Major League Baseball player. Unfortunately for Ray, his team manager was Hal Chase, one of the most notorious, crooked, and unhinged players to ever put on a baseball uniform. Chase influenced Ray more socially than on the field, introducing him to heavy drinking and a reckless lifestyle in the New York nightlife. On the mound, Caldwell became one of the team's best pitchers almost instantly. By 1912, he was considered one of the top young arms in baseball. He thrived under pressure, and New York fans adored him. He struck out the game's best, but was wild enough to lose the strike zone for innings at a time. While the success and accolades increased, so did Ray's drinking, causing the pitcher to spiral in his private life. In 1914, Ray Caldwell had his breakout season, winning 18 games with a 2.89 ERA. It was also the year that his personal life started to really affect the team. Caldwell would skip practices, miss trains, and even fail to show up for scheduled starts. His personal matters started to become public, and newspaper writers and fans started to take notice. New York had already sent Hal Chase off to the White Sox for being a problem, and now they were starting to see Ray as trouble in the making. Caldwell would disappear for days at a time, but would pitch brilliantly when he reappeared. In 1916, Caldwell would have one of his best seasons. He pitched so well that the Yankees kept him in spite of his troubled behavior. They tried trading him, but there was no interest. Then, by 1918, he was called to serve in World War I for the U.S. Navy. When Ray returned from service in 1919, he was out of shape and still unreliable. He disappeared, got suspended, and had big fights with management. But the difference in 1919 was performance. Ray pitched poorly, and in August, Ray disappeared again. The Yankees were fed up. New York released Ray, but still owned the rights to his contract. Later in the season, they traded him to Boston in a deal that involved 7 players and a lot of cash. The Red Sox had their own issues. Their biggest star was in full revolt and completely out of the franchise's control. Babe Ruth resented the mess that his team was in. He skipped practices, missed curfew, and was outwardly and publicly defiant towards team owner Harry Frazee. Frazee spent most of his time in New York producing Broadway plays. When his theater was failing, the company pulled resources from the team. The theater was a constant struggle. He often sold his players to finance plays and catch up on bills. Tired of his fight with the slugger and financially strapped, he sold Babe Ruth's contract to the New York Yankees for $100,000. The strict atmosphere was no more of a fit for Ray Caldwell. He wore out his welcome and was released before the season even ended. Ray cleared waivers, but wasn't sure if anybody would even want him. By this time, the entire league knew of his drinking and erratic behavior. After a couple of quiet weeks, Ray was contacted by Tris Speaker, a founding-era Hall of Famer but new player manager. Speaker was one of the best center fielders to ever swing a bat. He hit for a .345 lifetime batting average and only struck out about 10 times a season. Speaker believed he could save Ray's career. In a risky move for the first-time manager, he offered Ray Caldwell a contract with the Cleveland Indians. When Ray joined the team in 1919, there was no question in anyone's mind, including Ray's, this was his last chance in Major League Baseball. Speaker was a personable manager that tried to meet his players where they were at. He dealt with everyone differently and knew that punishments weren't going to work on Ray Caldwell. He also knew that he probably wasn't going to stop Ray from drinking. Speaker approached Ray with one of the strangest directives in baseball history. After Ray pitched in a game, he was to go out and get drunk. Not allowed to get drunk, required to go out and get drunk. He wasn't to report back to the team until day 3. At this time, Tris Speaker would have him run laps around the ballpark until he felt like Caldwell had sweat out all of the alcohol. On day 4, Ray would pitch batting practice, and on day 5, he should be ready to pitch in a game. The cycle was to be repeated throughout the rest of the season. When Ray Caldwell joined Cleveland, the team was already loaded with talent. They had a couple of solid starting aces, but overall the team's pitching was inconsistent. Chicago was out ahead by a handful of games, and the second-place Indians had a similar lead to the chasing third-place New York Yankees. For his first pitching assignment, Ray faced the Philadelphia Athletics. His manager felt it would be a good assignment because Ray wouldn't feel the pressure of facing the White Sox or the Yankees in the middle of a pennant race. Over 20,000 Cleveland baseball fans showed up to watch Caldwell pitch and erupted as Ray took the mound. They knew what was at stake, and they only became louder as the game progressed. Ray Caldwell had his best stuff that day. He retired the first 9 batters that he faced, in spite of the light drizzle. He faced a little bit of trouble in the 4th. He lost control and hit a batter, and gave up a run, but he would go on to dominate for the next 4 innings. Early in the 8th inning, the dark clouds rolled off of Lake Erie, and the drizzle was becoming a storm. In 1919, they didn't cancel games due to weather, and never had baseball considered delaying a game due to lightning. Nobody gave it a second thought when Ray walked out to the mound with only 3 outs to go. Ray wasn't going to be fazed by rain after all he'd put himself through. Joe Dugan was stepping to the plate. He had already reached base twice with a hit and a walk, but Ray knew he had faced far more difficult challenges. As Joe Dugan was walking to the plate, a blinding flash lit up the sky, along with the loudest cracking sound imaginable. A lightning bolt struck Ray Caldwell in the right side of his head. The electric current traveled through his body, down his leg, and out of his foot, leaving a burn hole in the field next to the mound. The players on the field felt the jolt in their spikes, most of them hitting the ground immediately. Ray was thrown backwards onto the ground, knocked out cold, arms and legs spread apart. The discharge nearly killed Caldwell, and everyone at the ballpark that night was pretty sure that it just did. The skybolt scared everybody in attendance. Fans screamed and many ran for cover as the rain intensified. Everyone feared another lightning strike. Cleveland catcher Steve O'Neill ripped off his metal face mask and threw it as far away as he could, out of fear of being hit by a second bolt. Shortstop Ray Chapman felt the surge go through his leg, enough to bring him down to the ground. He bounced back up to check on Ray Caldwell, but as he approached the stricken pitcher, he felt a zap push him back, and now everyone was all but certain that Ray Caldwell was dead. Trainers, coaches, and teammates circled around the laid-out pitcher. Nobody would touch him. Nobody knew what to do or say. From the fans' perspective, they could see the backs of players, somber and hanging their heads. But suddenly there was a change of energy out there on the field. Players were talking, and the trainer was working on him. A groggy Ray Caldwell slowly woke up, mumbling that he thought he had been hit over the head with a piece of lumber. With Ray still on the ground, teammates tried to holler for a car to take him to the hospital, but Ray was offended and refused the ride. He stood to his feet and said, "Nope, I've still got one man to get out." Even with his own concerns, Tris Speaker spent some time convincing the umpires that nobody was going to stop Caldwell from finishing the game. They all had their concerns, but the rain was now pouring, and everybody just wanted to hurry up and get home. The already stunned Cleveland crowd became emotional and loud as the manager made his way to the mound to hand Ray Caldwell the ball. Ray took a few warm-up pitches, as many made their way back to their seats. He stood in the same position he was in just 7 minutes earlier, up 2-1 in the ninth, with 2 outs, and Jimmy Dugan was making his way to the batter's box. This time the storm wasn't rolling in, it was already there. Ray threw his fastball through the downpour, and Joe Dugan hit a routine grounder that was easily handled for the final out. Ray Caldwell had just won the game. The astonished fans celebrated, then quickly made their way home. Ray's teammates ran to the mound, but not to celebrate. He had burn marks on his chest and uniform, and was visibly shaken. After convincing his team that he was okay, he left the ballpark under his own power. He didn't go to a hospital to get checked out. This was a pitching day, and Ray was supposed to drink on pitching days. The strange agreement between pitcher and manager was just as effective as it was odd. As wild as Ray's first start with Cleveland may have been, his second was to be just as stunning. 17 days after being struck down by Lightning, Ray Caldwell faced the team that traded him to Boston less than a year earlier. Not only would Ray face the Yankees at the Polo Grounds, he would have to face all of his lost potential and regretful behaviors. He was going to look down to the plate and see teammates who once battled with him through his highs and his lows. The Red Sox had faced New York 9 times during Ray's brief stint in Boston, but Caldwell never saw any action. This was his first opportunity against his former team, and he had just been hit by lightning 2 weeks ago. On September 10th, 1919, Ray Caldwell threw a no-hitter against the Yankees in New York. If it weren't for that one wild pitch that hit old Roger Pickenpaw, it would have been a perfect game. Ray finished the season at 5-1 with a 1.71 ERA. Cleveland never caught up with Chicago and didn't make it to the World Series. The White Sox went on to lose the 1919 series to the Cincinnati Reds in the biggest gambling scandal in baseball history. Caldwell returned to Cleveland for the 1920 season. His arrangement with Speaker seemed to be working again. He was a top 3 starter, on pace to win 20 games. Cleveland was red hot, poised to win the pennant, but on August 16th at the Polo Grounds, tragedy struck at the plate. Cleveland shortstop Ray Chapman was struck down by a pitch thrown by Yankees pitcher Carl Mays. There was an instant energy shift, as everyone knew it was bad. Cleveland players were equal parts worried and furious. Mays had a reputation as a mean and dirty player, and Chapman's teammates were certain he had hit Ray on purpose. Caldwell had been teammates with the Yankees pitcher during his last year with the club in 1918. But Mays was a tough guy to get to know, and Caldwell was AWOL too much to even try. Chapman, on the other hand, was beloved by everyone, the most popular guy on the team, destined for a career in politics or business. When Ray Caldwell was struck by lightning, Chapman was the first one to get to him. Cleveland went on to win the big game. The next morning, they received the heart-wrenching news that Ray Chapman had died of his injuries. Chapman still remains the only on-field death in Major League Baseball history. Many struggled to regain momentum after Chapman's death, including Ray Caldwell. He went on to win 20 games but started to fade down the stretch. Tris Speaker had held the team together and managed to lead them through a tight pennant race, and they would go on to beat the Brooklyn Robins in the World Series 5-2. Caldwell lost his only appearance in the World Series and failed to regain his stuff in 1921. He arrived in Cleveland older and slower. Early in the season, it became clear that Ray's time in the big leagues was coming to a close. After posing a 1-1 record after 5 appearances, Cleveland quietly released him, bringing an end to his Major League Baseball career. Ray Caldwell pitched 12 more seasons in the minor leagues, and all the while working for the railroad company and tending bar. He lived until the age of 79, a testament to his toughness and willpower. While his legacy is equal parts tragic to triumph, there's no denying that Ray Caldwell was one of a kind. I'm Big Tom McLean, and this is Hometown Baseball.